In this video, we want to work on the profile page. So after going to the user menu and click on the profile, you will see this page. So the user can change the profile information and the password on the same place. So let's do it together. Okay, here we have the roadmap of this lesson. The first thing that we want to do is creating the profile page component. So jump into your code in the Frontend, src, pages, right click and create a new folder with the name of profile and press enter. Then again, right click on it and create a new file with the name of profile page.js and again profile page.module.css. Now come back to the profile page and write RFC for creating the functional component. Close the sidebar. Here first of all we want to add the use form members. So we need to write const handle submit register form state equal to use form hook. So the use form will be imported from React hook form and we are going to use all of these from inside it, just like the login and register page. On the next line, I want to get the user from use auth, because if you want to edit the user information, we need to have current user information. So we get it from the use auth. Then we are going to write the submit function that gets the user and here updates profile. We are going to implement this inside the use auth, put it here and use it here. So stay tuned for that part. But for now, we just want to leave the submit function empty and go to the return part. On the return part, we need this CSS. So let's go at the top and import the classes from the profile page.module.css. As always, for the main div or the root div, I want to use the classes of container. Let's remove this profile page and use another div with the class of details. Let's add the title component with the title of update profile. After that, let's add the form with the onSubmit that is equal to handle submit and the submit function that we pass through it that will be called when there is no validation error, just like before. Now let's start adding the inputs. Our input component that its default value is equal to username, its type is equal to text, label of name. We spread the register function and we give it the name of name. It is required and it should have a min length of 5. And for its error, we use errors.name that has a specific errors for the name input. Now let's do it again for the address. The only difference here is that we set the min length of address to 10, so it should at least have 10 characters. It depends on you and how you want to get the data. You can change this value and the error that gets the errors specific for the address input. The next thing that we need to add is the submit button. We created a specific button, so we import it here. We set its type to submit, its text to update, and its background color to this. Now if we go to the browser, we'll see nothing because we didn't add anything to the app routes. So let's come back, go to the Explorer, open the app routes, scroll down, duplicate the last one, the one that has the authentication route, because the profile page is for authenticated users. Okay, duplicate it, change its path to profile, and inside the auth route, change the component name to profile page. Now, if you go to the browser, we'll see everything that we added here. Here, as you can see, we have the information from the user, but we need to be able to update it or change it whenever we click on the update button. So we need to add the update profile function inside the use auth, user service, and the user router. And let's start with the user router on the backend. Let's go to the code, open the Explorer, go to the backend folder, src, routers, and the user router. Here before the generate token response, let's write router.put. We want to update the user, so we'll use the put method /update profile as the path. This API should be available only for authenticated users. So we need to give it an auth middleware. Since this is the user router, and we have functions that should be called for non-authenticated users. For example, the login function will be called when the user is not logged in. So we cannot put authentication middleware on the router to make everything authenticated. On these situations, we need to make a specific API to be called when the user is authenticated, or we need to pass it through the authentication pipeline. For doing this, we need to go and import the auth middleware. So let's write import auth from middleware auth.mid.js. this. Then scroll down to the update profile function, put a comma and write auth. We import it as auth, so we use it as auth here. As simple as this. Then we need to write our handler, async, request, response, and the body of our handler. Here we need to get name and address from the request body. On the next line, we need to write const user equal to user model.find by ID and update. So this function are going to find the document inside the database by this ID and update it with this information. Because our field names are exactly the same with the database field names, can pass them like this without using colon or anything. And at the end, use the new colon true for getting the newly created user. By default, if you hover over this new, it says that without the new true, it returns the document as it was before update was applied. But if you set the new to true, it will give you the object after update. So we are going to get the updated user. Then after this function, we need to write response.send generate token response user. So we are going to generate a new token and send the updated user information through this generate token response to the client side that is our React project. Okay, we're done with the update profile. Let's go to the user service for calling it. To the front-end side, services, user service. Here we are going to have a function similar to the register, but for update profile. So export const update profile. We'll get the user and we send it to the server, to the API users update profile, the API that we created. We'll get the data that is the user information and we set it to the local storage of the user and we'll return it out of this function. Now that we have this function, we need to use it inside the use auth hook. So save it, open the Explorer, scroll up, find hooks, use auth. After the logout, let's write const update profile. It's an async function that gets the user from the component and calls the user service update profile and passes the user. It will get the updated user, shows a toast message that says profile update was successful, and if the updated user is not null or undefined, sets the user state to the updated user. So everywhere in the project that are using the user state will be updated with the updated user. Now we need to use this update profile here inside the provider value. Okay, save it. Now we can go to the profile page, scroll up here after the user, write update profile, and here inside the submit function, instead of this comment, let's write update profile and pass the user. Now if we go to the browser and change the information of the user and update it, we'll see that we have the profile update was successful toast and the user information is updated inside the user state. So we'll have it here. Now if we reload the page so many times, we'll see that data is permanently changed. Now if we change it again, we'll see that it works completely. Let's do the same with the address, refresh the page. As you can see, it works too. Click on the update, go to the main page and come back. As you can see, the information is persistent. Okay, the update profile section is completed. For the change password that I want to put on the bottom, I want to create a separate component because it's possible for you to use it separately somewhere inside your project. So it's an easy decision to create a separate component for it to make it modular. Okay, let's start by creating the component. From the Explorer, right-click on the components and create a new folder with the name of change password. Then right-click on it and create a new file with the name of change password.js. Then close the Explorer. Now let's close all the tabs and only keep the profile page. Here write RFC and press enter for creating a functional component. Then go to the profile page, scroll down at the bottom of the form, add change password component here, then go to the browser. As you can see, we have the change password component text here. So it means we can start working on the change password. This is very similar to the profile page. The only difference is the confirm password section. So here, first of all, we'll write const handle submit register get values and form state equal to use form that we imported from the React hook form. Only difference here is this get values because we're checking if the password password are matches, we need to get the values of the password, and we need this function. The next thing that we want to add here, just like the profile page, is the submit function that gets the passwords. I mean, current password and the new password. Here it needs to call a function for changing the password, and we are going to implement it after finishing the visuals of this component. Now let's go on the return part. For this component, I'm not going to use any styles because everything is already made. So just remove the change password text and start with adding the title. Set the title to change password. Create a form with the onSubmit equal to handle submit that calls the submit when everything is good, and the input for the password, its type is equal to password, its label is current password, with the register function spread it over here with the name of current password that is required, and with its specific errors. The next input is for the new password. So it has a type of password with the label of new password, name of new password, and we'll put our limitation again here, just like the register page. We just set its required to true and its min length to 5. So it should be at least 5 characters. We need another input for the confirm password. The type is similar, it's a password, label, register, the name of the input, it is required, but for the validation, we need this validate function that will call this function anytime this input changes or anytime we insert a character inside this input. So this function will be called, gets the current value and checks if its value is not equal to get values of new password. This new password is previous input. That's the reason that we imported get values from the use form. So if they are not the same, it's going to show this password does not match error. Otherwise, we are going to return a true. That means this validation is okay and doesn't have any errors. The rest is just the error and is completely similar to the previous inputs. The only difference is this validate part that is simple also. Now here as the last tag, we need to add the button. It is of type submit and its text is change. Now if we go to the browser, we'll see our change password inputs like this that we can use for sending information to server for changing the password. But we didn't create the change password API yet. So let's go to the backend and create its API. So open the Explorer, go to the user router. Here after the update profile, we'll write router.put /change password as the path, the authentication middleware because the user should be authenticated to call this API, and the handler just like this. Since this is an update 2, we are going to use put method again. Now here inside the handler, first of all, we need to get the current password and the new password from the request body, and we need to get the user by using the request.user.id that is set inside the auth middleware. Normally the user should be a valid user, but we'll check if the user is not valid. We'll send a bad request status with the text of change password failed, and we'll return out of this function so it doesn't go down. But if the user is valid, we need to compare the current password with the user password inside the database. The current password that will send to the server and the current user password. We cannot compare them directly because the user password inside the database is a hash. So we'll need to use bcrypt.compare. Its first parameter is the string, that is the current password, and its second parameter is the hash, that is the user password inside the database. Now that we have this equal result, on the next line, we need to check if they are not equal. We need to send a bad request with the message of current password is not correct, and we'll need to return outside of this API again. But if they were equal, it means after this if statement, we need to hash the new password using bcrypt.hash and set it inside the password, user password. And this password hash salt rounds is that 10 at the top. So once again, you can directly use 10 here. After changing the user, we need to write await user.save for saving it inside the database. And we just need to call response.send. We don't need to send anything to the client side. So our change password API is ready. So we can go and create its service function. So go to the front end side, services user service and write this simple function. Change password. Just call Axios, put change password and pass the passwords to the server. Now we need to go to the use auth hook for using this service. Okay, close the Explorer. Here after the update profile, let's write const change password. Gets the password as input, calls the user service change password and passes the password. If there was no exception, it will call the logout and a toast message that says password changed successfully. Please log in again. So the user needs to log in again with the new password. Now we need to put it inside the provider value and go to the change password. Scroll up. Here before the submit function, we need to write const change password is equal to use auth, okay? Like this. And now we just need to copy this change password and use it here and pass the passwords from the submit function. Now if we go to the browser, my current password is 54321. For this user, I'll change it to 12345. 12345 and I click on change. Okay, logout successful, password changed successfully. Please log in again. john@gmail.com 12345 and I log in again, and as you can see, password changed successfully. You can test it with your current and new passwords. Now that all the functionalities are implemented, let's work on its CSS. This page has one of the smallest CSS on this project. So open the Explorer, go to the profile page here and click on profile page.module.css. Let's start with the container. Set its display to flex, justify content and align items center, so it will be centered both horizontally and vertically. Height of 100% or you can set it to 100 VH. Margin top 3 rem, little bit of margin top, and the content inside it should have a smaller width, so we set the details to have a width of 28 rem, so it will be smaller on the middle. Okay, this was about this lesson. On the next lesson we are going to implement the orders page. So when you click on the orders, you will see the list of orders and you can filter them based on their states. You've been watching Code with Nasir and I hope to see you next time.